Welcome to my basement, everybody.
Oh, my God.
Hello, good morning.
Why must you yell like that? I don't feel well.
Have you had your sip of coffee?
I did have coffee a little while ago.
All right, okay.
I took a trip last weekend. I did not go to Fan Expo. I want to hear all about that in just a second, but I went home to visit my family.
Yeah.
And I was really blown away by the saturation point of Minecraft in my niece's lives, especially my 8-year-old niece. She cannot stop playing that game. But on the flight on the way back, as usual, I got a little bit headachy. I feel a little run down. I guess I'm kind of jet lagged. I don't travel as well as I used to, and we are going to go to Japan soon for the Tokyo Game Show. How am I going to survive a 10-hour flight crammed into coach?
We've got a Montreal trip in there before
I got, those seats, they're designed for people who are about 5'7".
Yeah.
For like Brianna's size. Right?
I think you have Kingdom Rush-itis is what you have. You played too much Kingdom Rush.
I did play too much Kingdom Rush. Maybe that made me sick.
Screwed up your brain and your head, and it's made your nose drip. It's a known condition.
Well, I had one of those gaming moments, and tell me if you've had one of these before, when you realize that you've overindulged.
Too much, yes.
Too much, and your eyes start to cross, and you feel terrible about yourself. And it's the same feeling you have when you jerk off and eat too much ice cream.
Okay,
It's the same kind of. It's the same thing, kind of.
Thanks for the clarity. That's awesome.
You're not on board. You're not on board with
what
my
an
metaphor?
Excellent image that is. You're
I
welcome.
haven't done it, but I've heard that.
You're welcome, everybody.
That you feel terrible.
You are welcome.
Or if you eat a whole bag of ketchup chips, it's that same kind. You just do too much.
That's indoctrination in Canada. You have to eat a whole bag of ketchup chips.
Well, that's part of right. In order to become a citizen,
and you have a Slurpee and
you have
Tim
to know
Hortons
all the words
donut.
to "O Canada."
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be able to name every member of last year's Olympic hockey team.
You have to make friends with a beaver. And then you're good.
you're on fire today. So let's go back and backtrack and tell me all about what did I miss at Fan Expo. Tell me how awesome it was.
Well, I got to tell
me
you
all the memories.
It was my best trip to Fan Expo ever.
Oh, you're an asshole.
I'm sorry.
The
weather was fantastic, and it was. I just felt like people right off when I got off the plane, people were just so welcoming and friendly and super nice to me, and it's always like that when we go, because we have a lot of viewers that go to the expo, and a lot of them live in Ontario, and it's just really, really pleasant and
all right, stop with the superlatives. Give me some stories.
But okay, so I met Billy Dello. I'm giving him a shout out, and apparently he listens to the podcast with some waterproof headphones that his girlfriend or his wife, I'm not sure what their relationship is.
Why does he need waterproof?
Well, he listens in the pool, so right now.
That's creepy.
What ear am I in, Josh? What ear is this? I'm on the left side. I'm in your left ear in the pool, Billy.
Hello, Billy. I'm in your right ear in the
pool.
Billy, we're alone.
Don't drown. He might be laughing
swimming
right now.
Swim towards the light, Billy. Keep swimming.
So he was really cool to see him.
That's kind of weird. Billy's a funny guy.
Oh, he's awesome.
All right, so you saw Billy.
He's a cop, and he wants us to go on a ride along in Toronto. And
I don't want that.
He says things get hairy. He likes that Jake Gyllenhaal movie with Michael Pena.
End of Watch, yeah.
Yeah, super cool movie.
Why don't we do that? We'll ride around. We'll shoot reviews in the backseat of a cop car.
He says it's like that. He says it's like that End of Watch movie, man.
Right, I haven't seen it yet.
That's
it's on my Netflix list.
Anyways, he was cool, but I was meeting people on the street. I was staying in the Fairmont Hotel.
Mr. Fancy with James Cameron's suite up top with his helicopter pad on the
Fan
roof of the
Expo
pool.
made me a real guest this year. That was part of it. Is that they
Did you sign with Lou Ferrigno?
I did not sign with Lou Ferrigno. But I did have brunch with Sam Witwer and Billy Campbell, which was pretty cool.
Oh, Mr. Big Shot at the Fairmont and everything.
I had the
Shout out.
Rocketeer and Starkiller talking about stuff together. It was really cool. And Jimmy Olsen was there, Sam Hutchinson, who's Witwer's co-star on Being Human. And that was awesome. And so I saw Sean's Nerd Noise Night party, and that was incredible. I was really blown away by Sean.
Incredible and blown away.
I really was. I really was, man. Like, it was such.
You gotta get you some new adjectives.
The Word Burglar was out there doing a bunch of great rhymes, and it was super fun. And I was watching like the Wolverine with his claws in the air, having a great time and dancing, and then There was a guy dressed as Ash with his chainsaw, and he was out there having a great time.
This sounds terrible.
It was so cool, and
so
Sean
glad I
was
wasn't
walking
there.
around with his Transformers Rumble costume and stopping traffic all over the place.
Great.
And he was cool, and seeing Marissa and Raju and Steve and hanging out with those guys was terrific.
Did you do any swinging out there?
Swinging?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, partner swapping.
No, we did not.
All right, let's keep.
Is that?
That's what I do when I go to Toronto.
When you went back? Okay.
I live it up.
All right. No, I was meeting people in the hotel. I was meeting people all around the show floor.
All right.
It was just one great experience after another. A lot of people came to the panel that we gave.
What was your panel? What was the premise?
It was kind of like, well, the first point of discussion was Ben Affleck, because that news dropped the day before Fan Expo started, so everybody wanted to know, and everybody wanted to talk about Ben Affleck as Batman. So that took up 20 minutes of our panel right there, and then we talked.
The panel? What was it? Was it there a premise behind it? Or?
No, we just had a bunch of topics. It was kind of like our podcast.
Was this the one with Sid Bolton?
No, we weren't able to put another one on because they were too busy at Fan Expo this year. I wanted to do another panel. But we couldn't do one, so we only had the one on the Friday. But all of our Toronto people were there, and people had questions for us. We talked about what's coming up next gen wise, and the new machines and the new games, and everybody complained about being so busy playing video games, which wah. Nobody cares about our problems.
Listen, let's get to the most important part.
Yeah.
Did people ask where I was?
Everybody wanted to know where you were. People were missing you.
Did more people want to know where Tommy was, or did more people want to know where I was?
Yeah, truthfully, more people were asking about Tommy than you. Sorry. The legacy of Tallarico. Damn it!
Is Tommy here?
Yeah, where's Tommy? I've been watching since the Tommy days. I only had one guy ask me when I was going to retire, which was nice. Yeah.
I
love your show. When are you going to retire?
Yeah, are you about done?
What?
Wrap it up there, Lucas. Yeah. What was the weirdest question you got? Did you get any weird questions?
Not really. No.
No weird observations? What about weird fan art or anything? Boy, this is really a rich podcast.
No, nobody. Everybody was really
salient details.
No, everybody was really cool and nice, and I did get some art. I got lots of photos with different people.
I saw somebody had a T-shirt that had it was the Contra guys, but it had your face and my face.
Yeah, that was weird, but also awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I put it on my Instagram, so if you're following me on Twitter, you can see that picture. It's actually, I put it on Facebook as well. It's crazy. What a totally cool artistic way to do that. And other people were printing up photos and stuff that we have like on our press site and stuff, and having us sign them and everything. A lot of people were missing everybody. People were asking about Foobs and Ben and Miri and Ben. It was kind of a little, too bad that we didn't have everybody this year. I was certainly missing everybody, but at the same time, I think that it's kind of a cool thing to create the desire for everybody to come back next year, and have people miss us a little bit.
I feel like there was a big party going on.
There was a party, yeah.
That I wasn't invited to.
Well, that party
nothing makes me more upset. I like getting invited. I don't like to go necessarily, but I like getting the invitation.
I have to tell you that the party at Fan Expo is Nerd Noise Night, and it needs to be bigger, and Sean and his friends have done an amazing job at collecting enthusiasm and giving something back, and it's a great capper for the evening. It's just a really fun way to celebrate and rock out and dance, and everybody was having a blast. It was such I can't tell you the waves of pride that I felt for my colleague when he puts on something like that, because I know what it's like. We put on the shows and we put on the CVAs, and sometimes it's tough to rally people's enthusiasm to get them out to support stuff like this.
Yeah.
And he has done it. He knocked my socks off. Billy Campbell was actually there to introduce his band and everything. He got up on stage and was rousing the crowd and all that stuff. It's just so cool,
Mm-hmm.
Next year, I think it's got to be twice as big, and we all got to go. And
it's my Sling Blade thing.
But the whole weekend was just great. The weather was perfect.
Glad you had a great time.
Yeah, I really did.
It's wonderful to hear.
And another big part of it was that we didn't have our own booth this year, but EB Games was really cool with putting us up at their booth.
What is EB Games? I've never heard of this company.
Well, that's GameStop in the States.
Okay.
And they tried to do the GameStop kind of brand up here in Canada, but we've known Electronics Boutique and EB Games forever in this country, and GameStop was a new thing. So they reverted and have stayed with EB Games as the brand. The parent company is GameStop in the States, but the Canadian division is EB Games.
What's the weirdest thing you signed when you were there? Sign any babies?
No babies.
Did you sign any
No body parts.
butts?
No butts. It was pretty straightforward. I guess I signed somebody's T-shirt. Signing T-shirts are always weird when you're on some dude's chest and you're trying to draw a little bat symbol and sign your name. It's always a little bit tricky. But no, people were. It was pretty. I think things get weird when you're there. Is what happens. I think the body parts start coming out when you're there.
Did you do any swinging?
No, I did not do any
I
swinging.
asked that already.
That's your go-to question.
I asked that.
We always have to cut that out of his interviews when he's out talking to celebrities and game developers.
Well, you just have to ask. You have to see how people respond and what their comfort level is.
Did you do any swinging?
I'm glad it was fun.
Yeah, it was great,
really
man.
fucking glad that all you guys had a great time.
It was really great. We did miss
assholes.
you. Marissa brought all kinds of awesome baked goods. She's so cool.
It's one of her many superpowers.
Yes, yeah, it was super fun.
So
man.
you're back, and we have a couple more trips coming up. We are doing a couple of ninja trips and secret trips, and we're going to Montreal, which is one of the great cities of the world, cosmopolitan.
Yep.
And people like to swing there.
We're gonna see some really freaking cool stuff when we go out there.
But then we go to Tokyo, and
Yes,
we're not
we do.
going for 1 day. We're not going for 2 days. We're going for 10 days.
That's right.
And so I'm a little worried about myself. 'Cause usually my maximum in Tokyo is about 4 days before I start to lose my shit. And so we're going for a full 10 days.
We're gonna get a cultural dunk, man. We're gonna see a lot of cool stuff.
I feel like we should be
on
in
this
some
trip.
Japanese immersion course right now. We should be learning the language.
We've been there enough. It's going to be super fun. We're working on a documentary, which we probably can't talk about too much right now. But
but it's about swinging in Tokyo.
It's about swinging in Tokyo. It's Scott Jones' dream job. He's wanted to do this forever.
It's fun. It's going to be exciting. I need a house sitter, though, for the month of September. Somebody who's comfortable working with cats.
Like the 80 cats that you have?
I just have 2
The
cats.
cat hotel that you run?
Well, I could either get a cat sitter.
Yeah.
And I had to get one over the weekend, or I could get somebody to house sit for me. Because we're going to be away from most of this month. We're going to be on the road. We're going to need concert T-shirts.
I know, right?
All the cities that we're going to along the way.
I know. It's exciting.
It's going to be fun.
And I think we're off to New York next month, too.
All right, so you're on the road, and you know what I was playing when I was traveling.
Yep.
Too much Kingdom Rush.
Yep.
Seriously.
I know, man.
And what about you?
I didn't even turn Kingdom Rush on because I know what that pull is. I kept to my word and I played the Vita. I was playing Gravity Rush more, and I love that damn game. And Guacamelee, I got right into that, and that is just loaded with all kinds of great little secrets. And I love the music and the vibe of it. And played a little bit more Rayman Origins in anticipation of Rayman Legends. It's great on the Vita, actually, the Rayman Origins.
You're like one of these ADD gamers. I sit next to you sometimes where you're just like 2 minutes of this, 3 minutes of this, 4 minutes of this, 2 minutes of that.
I like to touch and try everything.
Beep,
you know?
boop,
And
boop,
that's why I kind of stayed away from Kingdom Rush, because it would occupy your whole flight, and you don't try anything else, and then you get a headache, and you get the sickness afterwards.
And you're cranky for a week.
That's right.
So, I took the Vita home with me specifically to play Guacamelee, because a lot of people have been on Twitter telling me that this is a great game. It needs more love and more attention.
Yep, yes it does.
So the Vita basically flew 3,000 miles with me to New York State and flew back another 3,000 miles, 6,000-mile trip there for the Vita. Didn't even turn it on once.
Do you think if you had the Nintendo 2DS that would be turned on once or twice? What do you think about this thing?
I can't help but think about Apple.
Yeah.
And the terrific job that they do when they say, okay, this is the one best version of this.
Right.
This is all you need.
Right.
This one fucking thing. And Nintendo now, in some ways, it's...
Because they still have their DS business as well, right?
Yeah,
they still sell the DSi.
They're making all these different SKUs of the DS, and it's confusing. And I have
got the iPod Touch and the iPad Mini and the iPad and the iPhone.
I guess that's true. But I have a drawer that is filled with DSs.
Yeah.
like I probably have 8 DSs in there. There's the XL and the, like just this, it's like a graveyard of DSs.
Right.
And I don't even know where the chargers are for most of them. I don't, there's like a ghost that now rises out of the DS graveyard every night, has chains around it, walks around the graveyard, scaring away some meddling kids, so I don't know if I need another one of these, and I've always been very fond of the clamshell design ever since the Game Boy Advance. Remember when they came out with that one that opened like this?
Yeah.
Just like my ex-wife's legs once a year.
Yeah, I like that motion you're making. That's fantastic. Perfect for an audio podcast, by the way.
Well, so I have, and now they just have
Please
the
don't
screens.
mention clamshell and your wife in the same sentence.
My ex-wife.
Your ex-wife. Okay.
So, now the screens are just out there.
Yeah.
They're out there.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to
Free
those
in the
screens?
wind.
If they're in the wind.
Well,
You
it's
don't
like
get
the
to
Vita
close them
screen.
up.
It's just like the Vita screen and the iPhone screen. Look, they're saving money by not having a hinge on the damn thing.
What the fuck do you need? And this is, you're right. You said this the other day, and I couldn't believe it. It's the most cynical thing I've heard you say in 8 years that we've been friends and colleagues. You said, well, that's it for 3DS. That's it for 3D. 3D gaming did not work.
I think so. I think that's part of the message there, isn't it? I think that is the
it was a dumb idea.
The polite walk back from the attempt of 3D.
Like you're like whistling as you leave the crime scene,
But you know what? What's kind of tragic about it is that the 3DS, for all intents and purposes, was one of the best sort of displays of 3D that we had seen across most media.
As long as you hold it perfectly
you did have to do that for sure, but it worked.
Crazy.
It worked, which was insane.
It worked. I do remember being at E3 and seeing it work for the first time and thinking,
how is this possible?
Thinking I was holding a little piece of magic in my hands, and I haven't felt that way since I was 12.
I know. It was really cool.
You know what I mean? When I was 12, when I first discovered my body.
Yeah, when you touched yourself.
Sorry.
I remember.
I'm just angry today that I didn't get to go to Toronto.
I know,
that's
you're
all.
just letting it all out, man.
Yeah, I am.
Did you swing? No, but I remember at that E3 where the 3DS was out there, and Reggie was walking around as journalists
Reggie,
were playing the thing, and he was
James
really,
Cameron and Reggie.
Well, he was really. I don't want to say gloating, but he was happy because he could tell that we were all like, "Wow, this really works."
I just picture him now, though, in the wake of the sort of disastrous Wii U performance so far, being in the basement at Miyamoto's house, just strapped to a chair and being tortured. Like that's
like in a scene from 24 or Homeland.
Yeah, like he's just down there. He's no.
I don't know. Honestly, the games that people want from Nintendo, they're coming now. Like this Zelda package and bundle and
who
the $50.
Who the fuck wants that? I played this fucking game 10 years ago.
People that didn't play it 10 years ago.
Well, they were assholes.
Like Nintendo that bought a Wii that didn't buy the GameCube.
I better get the Wind Waker special edition.
You know what is weird with Nintendo though? It's like they have this. It's like this weird chart. It's like this up and down sort of stock price thing with who buys consoles and who doesn't. Like it's like they have a hit console, then they drop for a bit,
it's
and they
always
have
the way.
a hit console, then they drop for a bit.
I mean,
and I think there's a lot of people that never bought the GameCube.
The original Nintendo was awesome. Super Nintendo as a follow-up was awesome.
Yeah.
64,
awesome.
Step sideways, kind of.
No way.
Wasn't
really?
Great.
Come on.
Look at the software for that.
There
was some great stuff.
Their software was ridiculous.
There was some great stuff.
Yeah, I love the N64.
But I don't love the 64 as much as I love the two previous consoles. Now, the GameCube came next. Yeah. And that was also kind of a step. It wasn't great.
It was cute.
I loved it. Like I bought it. This was before I was even in the business.
Yeah.
And then, but that was their big mistake, was with the mini discs.
Separating themselves so dramatically from the rest of the industry.
Yeah, they were saying games are still for kids.
Well, they had done that with
all of these things. I remember all the neon colors that the fucking thing came in, and it had a handle on it, and it was so cute. And
well, they had done that a little bit with sticking with cartridges on the N64 as well.
Yeah, they're stubborn.
Well, they're in the Nintendo business, They're not in the video game business. Let's all hold hands, kumbaya. They're in their business, They know
what into trouble.
That it does, time and again, because it pisses off their partners and a lot of the fans that only buy that machine start to feel like there isn't enough software coming out for it. But then somehow magically, no matter whenever you count them out, Like the 3DS, we didn't expect this thing to be so successful. It's having one of the best years of any handheld right now, and the software is incredible right now for this machine.
What are we playing on it? What are you playing on it?
Well, they've had a ton of good hits this year.
Can't think of any.
Yeah, Luigi's Mansion, and
I knew that's all you're going to say.
Animal Crossing, and Mario and Luigi Dream Team, and there's lots of eShop titles that have been playing.
14, it's fun.
No, come on, there's lots of good games for the machine. Tons.
I love the 3DS. I love my 3DS XL. I love having those things. But honestly, if we're going to be honest here on the show, I haven't turned them on in months. I don't even know where they are. I don't even know what the charge level
part of it is Team Lustrous is reviewing most of those games for us right now too.
But there's nothing. But if there was something that I really wanted to play, it wouldn't matter.
You'd make it happen.
I would make it happen.
Yeah, but Kingdom Rush is out there, and you've played The Last of Us.
The Last of Us,
and we've done
Rush.
we've done 50 million, and we've done 50 million top 100 shoots as well. So, listen, the 3DS is having a killer year. There's a lot of good software.
What do you feel about the 2D? I want the 2DS. I want it, but I know that it's just going to go in the fucking graveyard.
Here's what I feel about it, and I don't know what the memory is, but that would have been where I would have spent the money. The built-in RAM for downloading stuff. The ability to store eShop purchases would have been where I would have made that value. Mm-hmm. But it's going to come out at a pretty low price point. I think it's like $130. And it's going to have all of the functionality of the 3DS so you can get online. It's not like the neutered Wii Mini or anything like that. But it's going to be like a point of purchase kind of decision. It's going to have the new look to it, which I think consumers always dig, something that looks different than everything else, even if it's less functional. But Nintendo doesn't usually make stuff that is uncomfortable, or that doesn't function well. I think it's still going to work well.
There's nothing wrong. There's just
I think more kids are going to get this. I think this is going to be the entry level, Nintendo handheld purchase this holiday. I think people are going to go, well, even if people have the 3DS, they're going to get this. And the other thing is the 3DS had this barrier to entry because you can't give a kid a 3D game. It's not good for kids under a certain age. But now that this is only a 2D device, it's like, well, here you go, 4-year-old nephew that doesn't have a game system right now. This is going to play every DS game and every 3DS game and all the eShop stuff. That's pretty cool.
I think everybody who wanted a DS has one. I don't think there's any reason. I don't think that there's a big pool of applicants that haven't been satisfied. That's my feeling.
I think the price is low enough that it's. I mean, that's one of the things with video games, right? Like when you have specific devices now that just do this, and they're competing against. You were saying this yesterday about your iPad Mini, how it's got your Netflix on there, it's got your Twitter, and it's got all the games. It's like this little all-in-one bundle. When you're competing against those kinds of devices, and you're really just a game-playing thing, you've got to come in at a price that becomes an irrefutable decision. Just like, this is so affordable, I'm doing it. This is a cool little gift, a cool gadget gift from a trusted name brand for not that much dough.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's going to succeed.
I think it's going to be like that red Wii that nobody bought.
Oh, it'll be much better than that. I mean, it's a better machine than that, and it's $30, more than that. It's a more powerful piece of hardware than that thing is.
I want it because I already have room for it in my graveyard. It'll go right in there. It'll be lovely in there. And maybe there are 4-year-olds who this would be a great gift for. I don't know, but I'm not speculating on the market and success of it. I'm just saying from a personal standpoint, I want it.
Yeah.
I have no fucking
because we have
whatsoever.
Nintendo collection genes.
But I think most gamers do already.
Yeah, I know.
Most gamers already own a whole bunch of these things.
I mean, it is the meta game of gaming is the collecting of all the ways that you can game on, even if you never use them. Like I bought that SNK Neo Geo limited edition thing for $200 which has the handheld thing that you can pull out, and then you've got the big size controller. I played it once when we reviewed it, and it's been in the closet the entire time.
Yeah.
But I like the collection of all that stuff.
So let's talk about movies really quickly.
Yeah.
And I think we saw the worst movie of the year.
It was pretty bad. I was remembering The Roommate.
Right, I was thinking of The Roommate too.
And I think this is just about as bad as that. No cats get killed or anything like that in this movie.
Just unwatchable. We're talking about Getaway.
Yeah.
And this is from director Courtney Solomon, stars Ethan Hawke and
Ethan Hawke, who needs a slap.
Disney beauty
at this point.
Selena Gomez.
Somebody needs to wake him up, shake him up, and I think it should be Nicolas Cage. I think Nicolas Cage should go over to Ethan Hawke's place and just start beating him around and say, "Don't turn into me."
No, Nicolas Cage likes being himself, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's true. That's a good point.
I think he's had a lot of fun, but that's the problem with this movie. Ethan Hawke looks like he's having no fun at all. Yeah. Nicolas Cage, even in the worst movie, with his weird wigs and everything on Sideways, he looks like he's having a good time. Ethan Hawke looks fucking miserable, like I'm beneath this material. I have no energy for this. I have no zest for this.
Or this material's beneath him, you mean?
Yeah, didn't I say that?
You said I'm beneath this
I don't feel well, Vic.
No, I hear you.
You know what I meant.
Well, the material is beneath him, but I think there must be something up with Ethan Hawke because he is in a lot of junk right now.
How the fuck do you make this, though?
I don't know.
This is Warner Brothers. We went to a screening last night. They invited us to the screening, and we sat there with our fucking jaws hanging open. I've never seen you attack a bag of popcorn with more vigor than you did last night. You were eating.
It was the only thing keeping me awake, man.
And then at the end, you angrily wadded up your bag, threw it on the floor, and then nodded off. Get away. 10 out of 10.
Oh, God, it was so pitiful. I looked around at the audience, too. I think everybody was just dumbstruck. It was just like, what? It was really like someone had a dead fish and they were beating us across the face with it, It was just like, just take that, It was so stupid. It was just one dumb car crash after another and nothing made sense at all. It was
I kept thinking about, like, what a just colossal waste we were looking at, because
don't people watch dailies anymore? Don't people look at other movies and things?
But the shows that we make here, EP Daily and Reviews on the Run, in case you're just tuning in, those are the TV shows we make. We could make 1 billion episodes for the price of one of those car crashes. I know, probably.
Right.
And they were just crashing cars all over the place.
Our grandchildren could work on these shows. If the
we could build the space station and shoot the show there with the money they spent on one of the car crashes in this fucking movie, and there's not 1 ounce of self-awareness in this thing. I mean, think back to the Blues Brothers movie that John Landis directed, when they had that self-aware car crash where the cop cars just kept piling up.
That was hilarious.
Are you guys fucking stupid? Did you never see that movie?
I know.
What a bunch of assholes made this movie.
I know, man. It honestly is.
I thought it would be junky fun.
I think what it is that there is this recurring sort of new blood that comes into Hollywood, and they just completely write off
Don't they go
the
to
history.
Film school?
They write it off, and part of it is that a lot of these decisions are just made on what the financial return is going to be on these things, and it's just it's just an equation. It's not it's not
Selena
a creative
Gomez,
discussion.
Plus Ethan Hawke, plus car crashes, plus Europe, plus John Voight. Green light.
Totally. Plus European money on the financing. They shot it in Bulgaria, it looks like. And boom, it happens, and then it's some piece of shit. And they've already sort of figured out what the video returns are going to be and how many plays it'll have in television. And
in hotel rooms, bored people get tired of watching porno. They'll turn that on for $14.95.
What the Taiwanese box office is going to be on something like this. And
bullshit.
It really is, because we're getting fed this really cynical, awful garbage. This stuff that just keeps Ethan Hawke paying payments on his mansion or something, and it's just it's an insult to everything that cinema has built.
All summer long we've been eating bowls of shit, and then we get to the bottom of the bowl of shit, and guess what we find? The worst kind of shit, cat shit, as you have established on the show before. So at the bottom of the bowl of shit that was this summer is this movie, and it is cat shit.
It is cat shit, man.
There's nothing worse than cat shit.
And it put me to sleep.
Yeah. You got caught up on your sleep, though. You look well rested today. I should have nodded off, too. I'm like, well, it's funny, because when we see a movie and one of us nods off, the other one's like, well, I guess I have to watch this now and tell them what happens. That's how it works.
Hey, let's go back to talking about video games. We started to go off on this tactic, or on this tack of talking about collectible old games and consoles, and I know we have a friend that can speak to that in a big way.
Oh, yeah.
His name is Mr. Mike Mika.
Let's welcome him to the basement.
Absolutely.
Victor Lucas, we are not alone down here in the basement today. We've got a special guest in the form of Mike Mika. He is the Chief Creative Officer at Other Ocean Interactive. Mm-hmm. And if the name sounds familiar, that's because, his name's been in the news a lot over the years, but most recently he's known as the guy who changed up Donkey Kong and very much empowered women through his interpretation of Donkey Kong. And he did this in the name of entertaining and teaching his daughter a very valuable life lesson. Hello, Mike, welcome.
Hello, I'm glad to be here.
Sorry.
You can call me Mike all you want.
Sometimes I feel like you sound like a Mark to me. I don't know what's wrong. I apologize for that.
You know what it is? It's his first name and his last name sound very similar.
Yeah,
Mike
lots
Mika.
of alliteration.
Yes.
There. So let's start by talking about this Donkey Kong experiment. What was this born out of?
Well, first of all, you fucked it for every dad out there, by the way, and I know you know this already.
What are you going to do for your daughter?
I know, Ruby. Yeah. I'll never be able to program Donkey Kong for her so that she can be in it. But I'll call you Mike. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, it's been pretty funny the number of people who've written to me or called me up on this, and one of the funniest ones was the reaction I got from a guy who said, like, I've tried to graft a horn onto 5 horses now, and they keep dying. What am I going to do on this thing? But it's been fantastic. Who would have thought? I did that thing out of just a fun little thing for my daughter, and was posting it to Facebook, and suddenly this thing exploded. It was pretty crazy.
Well, I think you tapped into something that people never appreciate around video games, and I think it's what led you into having a career in games. It's what's led Scott and I to having careers in games. We love this stuff, and there's a passion element. Yes. There's a real heart sort of connection to this element that doesn't get talked about enough. It's not just this faddish diversion that we, lose ourselves in. This is really significant chunks of our life that we give to this interactive entertainment, and I think that's what this is about. It's about loving something, and I think you have, through this and also through that really cool story of the marriage proposal, which we'll get into a little bit, used video games to kind of show your love to people that you care about.
I think you're right. Ever since I was a kid, I found at my parents' all these folders of drawings I made in 3rd grade of sequels to games I really liked or original games that I created. And I remember being a kid writing into Activision and sending them all my ideas, and they would write back saying look, we can't take outside ideas. And then at one point, I think it may have been Gary Kitchen or somebody over there at Activision, actually personally responded back and kind of critiqued what I had sent in.
Wow.
So it's ever since then, I've kind of seen the world through video game eyes, because that was I grew up as the first generation of video gamers, really, and I would interpret everything I would see and want to express, and I would do that through video games.
That is amazing. That's an incredible. I can't believe that. I'm so impressed that you would go through all this trouble to write to these guys because you wanted to get out there and have your creative moment and make some video games. I remember. The only guy who I read at that point was a guy who wrote a column for the local newspaper about video games. I sent him a letter, and he never wrote me back. So the fact that you heard back from Gary Kitchener at Activision is incredible.
Well, it really was, especially after failing so many times to get a real response.
That's awesome, and that typifies who you are as well. I've met a lot of people in the gaming industry, and I have a lot of friends across the spectrum, and you always. You're just such a wonderful person, Mike. I always, honestly, I hate to sound so cornball.
Here he comes. Pouring it on.
You really stuck out for me. I would come and visit Other Ocean. It was called something else too for a little while. Digital Eclipse, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, and I would come and visit you guys, and we talk about games and stuff. You were always so encouraging and welcoming, and obviously in love with the life that you were able to lead. You had gotten to a part of your life and been able to do something with your life that made you incredibly happy. And I think that's an infectious quality that you have, my friend.
Oh, thanks, man. And it's true. To be able to say you make video games for a living, it's a lifelong dream for me.
Yeah.
And every day I kind of wake up and say, I can't believe I'm doing this. It's I feel like I'm just that 8-year-old still drawing pictures or whatever, and it's great.
Why are they great? I want to hear from somebody that loves games as much as Scott and I do. Why are they great?
It challenges me in so many ways. I can create anything with a computer. I can sit down and any world I dream up, any emotion I want to articulate. We're kind of experimenting with, can you tell a scary story in a game and deliver real true frights with only squares on the screen.
Mm.
And that was like a great challenge. And we sat down and for 2 weeks kind of worked on this thing. And to be able to do that and put it in front of people and watch people like freak out and not wanting to get near the computer because they're scared it just blocks. That is awesome. And I couldn't get into film. I couldn't get into these other things. So it seemed so unachievable. But with a computer, I could do anything, and I had one.
And now film can't be made without computers, which is
exactly.
I love what Mike's saying here, because I do feel, and it's something that I think a lot of game designers forget these days, is that these worlds are limitless. This is a new way to tell stories. This is we're still experimenting with trying to figure out the best way to tell stories, or maybe there's stories that don't even necessarily make sense. But it's powerful. I mean, it is. You're like a wizard who's discovered your own inner potential, and we're just trying to figure out what to do with these powers. And I love hearing the excitement in your voice as you're talking about, trying to find the boundaries or what these powers are capable of.
It's true. Like, to me, especially now we got a next generation of console coming out. We've got all these incredible devices like the iPhone and Android phones and all stuff. And it's not like there's ever been any real limitation. I'm surprised that we haven't gone further with the things we're making right now. Like, I look at an iPhone and the stuff that's on there, it's great. I love the games and they really excite me, but I feel like we have so much untapped potential. Like, what are we going to really do with that device? It has so many features. What kind of entertainment can we deliver there that hasn't been done before?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of that. There's so many brilliant ideas out there ready to happen. And I just can't wait to see those.
Well, you're a technical guy now. We still have the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, which are,
powerful,
very powerful machines. And I mean, honestly, do we need the horsepower of these new consoles?
I don't think so, and I think you see that in the design of these consoles. They're very welcoming now to letting anybody make games on them. And it's kind of funny, it kind of comes full circle, because when the Apple II came out there, and I had a Commodore 64 growing up.
Oh my God. We're having Mike on the podcast every week. I love this guy.
Well, out of the box, you would be able to make a game. It would say ready, and that ready just kind of, it felt like I could do anything after that. It's like, are you ready is what's basically challenging you to do, right? And you could type in anything and create your game. And now with these consoles, pretty soon anybody with the next round of consoles will be able to just fire up their compiler and make a game for that console. So it's kind of come full circle. So to me, with the potential now is greater than ever, because we have these really powerful machines that aren't like inhibited by some of the stuff that you have on PC or any of these things where you have to have multiple programs running at the same time, whatever. Now a real gamer can get on a console and make the experience they want to. I play games like Thomas Was Alone, and I'm like, I have more fun playing this than I do some of these $60 titles I played last generation. Wow. It's mind-boggling to me that a one-person team pretty much can create something like that it's rich with emotion and very exciting to play.
And we really have come full circle from those days, when you were writing your fan letters to Activision. I mean, those were one-person teams and two-person teams back then.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. If you were lucky, you had other people, but yeah, we've this is the the Brian Provinciano era, where you're making Retro City Rampage, in a room by yourself for 2 years.
Yeah, and you're marketing it yourself, and you have a direct line to the consumer, the person who's going to play your game, and it's. I use the word consumer. I felt dirty.
Yeah.
I was in a meeting coming before this where it's like you get into the business talk, but like I can't wait to get that out of the way and just think about like all my friends are going to play this game, and all my friends might be thousands of Twitter followers or whatever. It's more intimate now when you're making a game.
I think what's kind of cool about your perspective on all of this is obviously you were a fan then, you were building stuff then, even as a kid, but you were also playing all of the hot stuff that was out either on console, which would have been the Atari 2600 or the ColecoVision.
How are you affording all this stuff?
But also the arcade stuff, and then you went and you helped to preserve that through your work at Other Ocean and Digital Eclipse by bringing all of these collector's editions of like Midway Arcade Greatest Hits and the Konami stuff. How many of those kinds of projects did you work on?
I can't even. It's been way too many. I can't even count. That was kind of like a passion of mine, as you can tell, because there were some games that would kind of come back. But if you remember, before MAME or any of these emulations that are out there now, people would interpret those games, and there would always be something wrong with those games.
Which is that's the iPhone right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you would play these games. You're like, this isn't right. This doesn't feel right. Doesn't look right. There's something missing or whatever. So there was a guy I worked with, Jeff Vavasor, who's up in Vancouver. Awesome coder, and he helped develop some of the first emulation ever of a video game.
Awesome.
And they were the Williams arcade games. I think it was Joust, Defender, and Robotron were the first three.
Yep.
And it was mind-boggling to see the game start up and have that carpet sweep initialization that the arcade machines would have. And you knew at that point this thing was simulating everything perfectly. And the nuance and everything that went into these games that Eugene Jarvis and these guys have just developed in these games that were lacking in all the ports were back. And you realize how brilliant those games were. So for me, as somebody who's really passionate about games and the things I grew up with, but also the history of games, I felt like it was my calling to try to get as many of these classic games on modern platforms as I could so that new gamers could see where it all came from.
Yeah, and that obviously has been adopted, the mechanics and the language of video games that a lot of those guys, the masters like Eugene Jarvis and Ed Log, those guys created the way that we had a connection with computer software and computer gaming software. That's being interpreted, now with touchscreens and kind of interesting ways, but not always with the same sort of in-depth, fidelity or the same kind of richness or the same tactility that we used to have out of those old 80s arcade games. What's missing?
You're right. It's funny because if you think about back then, everything like Robotron, the innovation was 2 joysticks with these big joysticks you have in an arcade machine. A lot of people right now are trying to simulate 2 joysticks on a touch screen, which that's not innovation at all. That's just trying to mimic something that solved a great problem back then, but this new hardware doesn't have that problem, and in fact, it's not even in the same league as that.
Yeah.
And you've got to find new ways to create controls or interfaces on these touch devices, and I feel a lot of people are really lazy with that. You can't bring Robotron properly to an iPhone without 2 actual joysticks. Yeah. So it's almost like an effort not worth doing. But
how much
people are trying.
Yeah, how much do you credit, because I don't want to be dismissive about Apple or Android development. We love a lot of those games. Like Kingdom Rush is something that comes up. This podcast could be called Kingdom Rush.
Brought to you by Kingdom Rush.
But we, obviously play a lot of things that leave us cold because of the touchscreen stuff. How much of it has to do with Apple's ambivalence or, that just their sort of meh attitude about games, it seems. I mean, they always have, when they have their, and I know you have a good friend over there, Matt Casamassina, who is a great guy. They always have games up on stage, every one of their keynotes. Every time they bring out a new iPhone or a new iPad, it's like, well, here's how sexy games can look. But they don't, like, without controllers, we're not getting what games can be, I think.
You're right. And, the guys over at Apple, it's kind of a, like, if you think about Mac, go back even to the old Mac days, early Mac days, games were always an afterthought, if not even a thought at all on Apple's radar. And it took everybody else from like Bungie and these guys to try to take the platform seriously. And in the early days of the iPhone, Other Ocean was one of the first games shown. Steve Jobs actually...
You showed Super Monkey Ball, right?
We showed Super Monkey Ball. He was on stage with it.
That was one of the first games that I went, holy shit, this is a real platform. And it was your game. Did you work on that one too?
Yes, that was it's one of the games that we kind of brought over from Dreamcast and reinvented for the iPhone, and that was a case of taking the controls and what it could do, and remap that to what was special about the iPhone, and it actually worked better on that than I'd say some of the consoles.
Did Steve Jobs actually show the game off and play the game?
He did. He introed the game, and then we also heard that was the one game he would play on the iPhone.
Oh wow!
And we were kind of excited about that. He endorsed it every opportunity he could.
That's crazy because he's from games, and maybe this was part of it, right? Like Apple sort of fell in line with whatever Steve Jobs was sort of saying from the perch, but he's from Atari. He worked in the video game industry, and maybe he just got fed up with it. Maybe he saw it as a something that's sort of taking. Because I think what happened with him, and I see this happen with a lot of business leaders, Don Matrick and Alex Garden and stuff, is the game becomes building empires for real, in real life.
Yep.
And maybe Steve Jobs saw that too. Maybe it was more about like his simulation was actually Earth.
Well, I do think some people genuinely just outgrow games. I think that happens. I think it's a real thing.
Not me, man. Is that going to happen to you, Mike?
Of course, Jesus.
I've never heard of these people. You're right. Actually, I think you're right, because if you think about the iPhone, and then when games started to take off, I left Digital Eclipse and Backbone for a little while there.
Yeah.
And I was working at a company helped kick off NG Moco, called, which you've probably seen a lot of their games.
Sure.
And that was like really big discovery day. It was like the pioneering days for us because we could do anything and we didn't really know what the limits were with the iPhone. And the thing that we noticed were the people who were downloading games on the iPhone were latent gamers, people who gave up playing games maybe in the NES era or even the Atari era. They're older now. They were looking for games on their iPhone and they hadn't touched anything in between.
Right.
And they were coming back to gaming. That's what, like Farmville players are latent gamers who have been reactivated. And you've got Candy Crush players. A majority of them are reactivated players.
One of my favorite old iPhone games is an NG Moko game called Dropship, which I don't think enough people were aware of. Did you work on that game?
Yes, I produced that game, and we did that with Tim Omernick, who was the engineer on that. We were trying to make a version of Thrust. I love that game, too, because one of the cool things in there, of course, it has like the kind of center general like arcadey vector look and everything like that, was so cool. But it was also an old-style gameplay based off that old Thrust game, but you had these people you'd rescue that were your friends because we'd take the names from your contact list.
It was so brilliant, and it used inertia and it used gravity, and it was super cool. Had a little bit of a Defender kind of vibe to it as well. It's still on my phone. I've got the iPhone 5. Awesome. I've never erased it. Every phone that I've got, I've always ported Dropship over to it. And I know nobody plays it. I don't think it was a huge success for you guys, but God, it was so cool. What happened to NG Moko?
So they were acquired by DNA or Dina.
Okay, yeah.
That was after my time. I left there after about a year.
And then went back to Other Ocean.
Yeah, we got the band back together. So I was over here doing stuff, and they basically pioneered the free-to-play space pretty well. They had the We Rule game that came out for a while that was doing extremely well, and a lot of people kind of mimicked that, and it kind of took off. And there was also a first-person shooter called Eliminate that they did. I was really impressed with. That was also one of the first free-to-play games, and they did some great things.
Yeah, I remember.
And now, they're doing awesome stuff now. They're working with Peter Molyneux on I think it's Godus. Is that what it's called?
Okay, cool.
I remember sitting with Alan Yu in Tokyo the last time I was in Tokyo, and he said he was working with NG Moko at the time, and he said we're working on something really cool, and he showed me that first-person shooter. I think it was Eliminate.
Yeah.
Yep. And he said, "Look at this," and I couldn't believe it was running on a phone. I mean, I still don't think that first-person shooters have any business being on a phone with touchscreen controls. I know Vic will disagree with me.
Well, I think it's going to become a moot point. I've got two questions for you, Mike. As a Robotron fanatic, because I know you are, just like me, why the fuck don't we have Robotron on the Vita? Why? I mean, how many?
We gotta petition Warner Brothers. They have control of all that now. That belongs on the Vita. I mean,
honestly,
believe it's not there.
Yeah, that's a perfect handheld game that has never had a perfect handheld to play on.
And that is the perfect version for it. That's the handheld that was meant to play Robotron.
And we finally have it, and you can't get that goddamn game. I mean, you can get all of these distilled versions of Robotron, and there are some good ones, but I want Robotron, man. I want the classic Robotron. And the second question is, what happens when iOS 7 comes out and the controller, options are becoming available for iOS? Does that change everything for the portable landscape, do you think?
I think it really does. I've actually been using the Nexus 7 with like the Moga controller and some other Bluetooth controllers. And having a lot of success with that. It's really fun. I'll go on a trip and I'll just kind of prop it up on the plane and sit there and play Robotron or whatever. And it's great. And I think now to have that finally for an Apple product without being like a gray market kind of workaround, it's going to open a lot of doors. The devices are so powerful. You can even hook these things up to an HD TV pretty much and have a wireless controller now. You can play all those games.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Hey, Mike, so we've talked a lot about iPhone development and stuff like that and retro games. What kind of stuff, and obviously you're not going to be able to talk about everything, but what kind of stuff are you working on these days that really excites you?
It's really coming down to these new consoles right now are pretty exciting. It's not because it's a new round of consoles. It's kind of console plus all the other devices. The ecosystem is exciting to me. The fact that we can deploy a game now on all these devices and have them all communicate with one another. That's kind of blowing my mind right now. We're coming up with all these ideas and working on a couple projects right now that requires, well, it doesn't really require, but it just the experience is so much better if you have a tablet plus a console, or your phone plus a console, or phone plus tablet. And the design approach that we're taking now to create like experiences that expand these devices, and not just to have the same experience on each device, but to one up the experience every time you add a device to it is pretty exciting.
Now, what about that scary game you talked about using blocks earlier? Is that something that's going to see the light of day eventually?
I think so. We were just experimenting with this, and it's actually part of a bigger plan we had, and we've had some pretty positive response to it. So I think it's going to turn into a full product. And in fact, if it's starting to look like it's going to, I should probably get back together with you guys and deliver a build to you so you can tell me if we succeeded.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
You're always, I think you just ascended to becoming our favorite guest on the podcast.
Maybe
I cannot believe. Yeah, I might be out after today. You guys can say, welcome back to Robotron Love Hour.
Yeah, we were kind of phasing him out there for a little bit. You know, that does bring up a very good point, is that we have to have Eugene Jarvis on this thing. Maybe we get a roundtable going with you and Eugene, man. How would you like that?
That would be awesome. That guy rocks.
We would have to clean up the
blows
basement.
my mind.
He's a legend, and you know
he is. And if you look at Robotron, it's kind of like the Bible for design. It's his approach to Robotron and what it is almost like a good go-to of 10 most important things you need to do when you start a new design.
Yeah.
The fact that you can go to the game, and if you're really good, you can get to the highest levels in just a matter of minutes. So you don't feel like you're just slogging through the same old every time you play it. It just scales perfectly. It's really good.
It's incredible. I play that thing on my 360 all the time on Xbox Live Arcade. It's one of those games that, oh man, this could be the Robotron show. But he built the thing and he plays it every day, and I'm sure he still does. He's played it since the '80s every day.
Let's pick one podcast coming up. Make it the Robotron show. We'll have Mike back. We'll get Eugene on.
The kids just don't know, man. They don't play. They just don't appreciate how cool this game is.
Old man Lucas.
Because it's not on the Vita. I think everything will change if it's on the Vita, and then if it's on the iPhone with an authentic Robotron on the iPhone with dual sticks.
The Vita is not going to give Robotron 2084 its renaissance that you want it to have. Come on, my friend. Though.
I know.
Realistic.
So you work at Other Ocean. Other Ocean is still a part of Foundation 9, right?
No, we are. It used to be. This is kind of confusing. Because
what's going on with all of that now?
The first iteration of Other Ocean was actually our Backbone studio in Prince Edward Island.
Okay.
And when Andrew Eyre, the original president of Foundation 9 and Digital Eclipse and all that, left Foundation 9, he took with him that studio from Backbone.
Okay.
So that's where the confusion usually sets in. It became Other Ocean when Andrew took it.
Okay.
And then I came on board a year after that, or so, a year or two after that. And then we've been Other Ocean independent since. But we love the Foundation 9 guys, and we keep in touch with those quite a bit. I'm so excited for Killer Instinct.
I know. That's what I wanted to bring up, because it seems like they're having a bit of a renaissance. You know, they're actually.
They are. That game is what they were born to make.
I know. Seriously, the credibility and the talent and they've. And the thing that people don't really recognize about that studio, and you obviously know this because you've got so many friends over there, is that they've built so many games in so short a time period. You know, they just ship like some kind of new licensed product year after year. It doesn't really give them too much credibility to ship, licensed games that don't rate too high on Metacritic, but it's hard to make a game, and they keep doing new ones all the time, and multiple SKUs as well.
I wish people would talk about that more often, because it's really hard to make any game.
Yeah.
And when you're a studio like that, and we've had to do this for licensed products all the time, I used to always joke that working on a licensed game is like, being a stripper to put your kid through college.
Yep.
It's like this thing where you don't necessarily want to make licensed games, but you can do whatever you want within that space, and you can hone your skills and build your technology when you do that.
Yeah.
But it's a thankless job, because the fact that you can do a game in 6 to 8 months that would normally take 3 years and get that out there is a huge achievement, but you'll never get recognized for that. And then you also get pigeonholed for that. So everybody wants you to keep doing that, because the guys who are working on the new things, like the next Halo or whatever, they're going to spend the 3 to 5 years on that, and you won't ever get that chance to elevate out of that.
No.
And when you do, sometimes it's like they want you to make this new IP or whatever for the same price and same time you would normally make something that you would actually borrow concepts from. Like when you're working on an IP that's established, you don't have to create all that new stuff. You don't have to create a world. You don't have to do all this stuff. So when you're given the same time and money to create an entirely new world and new experience, you're going to probably mess that up. And yet
the stuff that we miss as well, too. Like this year we have an Iron Man movie and a Superman movie. We want those games, but they're not there, and we miss them as video game fans. We want them, but the industry
We don't want the shitty ones.
We want great ones. Yeah. We want Arkham Asylum quality, awesome superhero licensed games.
And does Disney Infinity kind of mess that up? Because why would you create a standalone Iron Man game when now Disney Infinity can put Iron Man and the playset and stuff in there, or have something similar for?
That is an amazing game too, isn't it? Just the concept. Awesome. I mean, it's fun as hell, and they've done a really good job with like all these little pieces and worlds. But just the idea that it's almost a console independent thing. It's almost like Rock Band in a way. You know?
It is, and I can't believe I got suckered into it. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. But I have 2 kids, right? So I brought this thing home, and my son, since last night, has been going crazy on the toy box mode. He's only 6, but he's managed to figure out the entire interface to place things and connect everything together. And he's created this enormous world with racetracks all in it and castles. And the castles aren't just the ones that are pre-made. He's like used the little blocks and did like a Minecraft approach to building a giant castle. I can't even do that with the interface, but it's just perfect for kids in particular. And I'm blown away by the scale and scope. It's mind-boggling. I can't believe Avalanche pulled it off. They did a great job, and it's so approachable.
I mean, seriously, like that has got to be one of the craziest concepts ever to sort of say, okay, take all of these properties, mix them, drop characters in whenever you want, do all of this stuff. And I almost feel bad for Media Molecule in a way, because they kind of... It's like they lofted the tennis ball up in the air with Little Big Planet, but they made a game that was successful and has done very well, but will never scale to the size of awareness of a Disney thing, you know? And and they also made it harder to build stuff than Disney Infinity has. They've simplified it, I think.
Yeah, Disney has really simplified it, and I think whether it was luck or they're just geniuses or whatever, it doesn't really matter because they've pulled it off.
Yeah.
And that intro sequence, when I sat down with the kids and the family, and they're watching that beginning, and the idea of the spark, and then you collect your ideas
wonderful.
and you build on there, is amazing, and it captured everything that's the philosophy of Disney and like the old school Disney, as well as everything about imagination and what you could potentially do with the product. They kind of nailed everything in that first 2 minutes, and you understood exactly what the product was and what you had to do.
But you're right. I mean, what's going to stop them from just throwing Star Wars in there or Marvel stuff in there? Like, this could spell the end of them saying, well, we don't need to build standalone titles. We'll just throw them into our Disney Infinity universe.
It's safer, and let people just play with those concepts rather than like try to fail at telling a new story with the characters or whatever.
Right.
It's a really interesting new world.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that if this succeeds, which it looks like it will other, like, is this, like every big franchise, or is this the destiny, like, for all of it? Like, is Warner Brothers going to do the same thing with a DC type thing at some point, do you think?
I think so, but like, look at what Disney has. They have everything that you care about, right? Like, Warner has DC, and they have a lot of great properties, but they don't have Star Wars plus Marvel plus all the Disney stuff. So
amazing.
It's gonna be hard for anybody else to come in and try to steal that thunder.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, maybe what that means is that a lot of the licensed work goes to built-in Disney studios, and that leaves companies like yours the opportunity to just come up with new things like blocks that will scare the shit out of you.
Exactly.
See, that I'm interested in.
Scary blocks. Look up for it.
I want to play that game. This Disney Infinity stuff can go fuck itself. I'm fucking glazing over here. Can we change the subject, please?
Well, Mike's as big a fanboy for these potential things, and
Jesus Christ.
He's a dad too. He appreciates all of this stuff.
All right.
He's a
Great.
big.
There's 3 of us here, though.
All right. So, what are you looking forward to most, game-wise, as somebody that plays everything and checks out everything, and as a hyper fan like us? What are you most excited about for?
You know what? It's really coming down. I can't believe I am so excited for it. But Titanfall just looks amazing to me, and I'm not a big like Call of Duty fan, first-person shooter fan so much. I play Halo and Gears of War, whatever. Titanfall just looks. If they deliver on everything I've seen, that's the game I want.
It's super fun, dude.
It looks so good.
Yeah, it's super fun. We obviously you were at E3 too, but the hands-on at E3 was really ridiculous. I was a bit surprised it swept all the awards from the E3 critics thing. I didn't expect it to be the biggest thing there, but it is absolutely super fun. And who doesn't like giant robots?
That's it, and it looks so natural to play. Like, everything is just... in your mind, you're thinking, like, wouldn't it be cool if... And then it just does it. And you're like, wow. It's almost like that's what they should have called their studio. Wouldn't it be cool if? Because that seems like everything they threw in is all the cool stuff you'd think at that moment, and it's like it just does it.
Plus new IP, which is always a good thing to see. What's the most surreal thing that's happened to you in your career?
Most surreal thing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I've never been asked that. It comes down to a lot of small surreal moments, like working on software where I remember one time we were making a really big property game based off of a young girl's IP for a big company. Yeah. And we're having so much trouble getting this approved and to have happen. And our producer at this company kept telling us like, oh, the main character who's a little girl, the problem with her is she runs like a girl, and like also it was just all these things. And I remember also at the same time we were being published by a big hardware manufacturer.
Yeah.
Jeez, I wish I could talk about all this stuff. But the thing is, we had to. They didn't want to publish the game because they were kind of trying to get out this bigger contract. So we're kind of stuck in the middle. So I would get the license holder saying they wanted all this crazy stuff that shouldn't be in there. They would have the hardware manufacturer saying like, you have to do all these things to try to get us to fail. So one of the things would be like, we have to give an error when the device is submerged in water. Like, why would that? The only reason that even came up is like, oh, if they can't do that. And so we would destroy devices trying to get all this stuff to kind of until we figured out how we can actually put an error code that shows up before it dies that, hey, I'm in water and all this stuff, just so we could get out of this project. It actually turned out really good, and I wish I could talk about it, but the project did well. And
so you were in the middle of kind of a cat fight between a license holder and a hardware manufacturer?
And these were two titans, and I remember
oh my God.
going to like the big conference room at one of their places, and we were excused to the kids' table after they started to get really heated, and we could just hear them shouting at each other in the room. And it wasn't anything about what we were doing. It's just they were done with each other. And so ultimately the product turned out great because of it, but it was so painful. I was on that one for over a year, and it should have been like a 6 to 8 month project.
All right, well, tell me a good thing.
A good thing.
Yeah,
that's surreal.
A good surreal thing.
Well, he already mentioned one earlier. He had Steve Jobs playing his game
on
cool.
stage. That's pretty
at
cool.
an Apple press conference. Yeah, it's pretty surreal.
That's surreal. And then actually trying Oculus Rift for the first time just recently was very surreal to me, because you think you're in this comfort zone of like, I kind of know what's coming up, but then when you actually try that, it was like more than just the device, just the potential suddenly floods into your mind of what you can do with something like that.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
That's 2 for 2 weeks of Oculus Rift mentions.
Yeah, I think we're going to hear a lot more Oculus Rift going forward. When are our units going to arrive?
I don't know, man. I think they're only sending out developer pieces right now, right? You have to be...
Who are we? We're chopped liver?
Well, we're not making games, but it sounds like Other Ocean might be making an Oculus Rift game.
Draw whatever conclusion you want to.
Cool.
Mike, listen, it's been awesome having you on the show. And I wasn't joking earlier. You're always welcome here to talk to Vic about Robotron and Disney Infinity to your heart's content.
I love you, Mike. I miss you, buddy. I got to get down. I got to get down to San Francisco. We got to hang out.
Absolutely. I'm going to be up at PAX too, so if you guys are around there, we should catch up. And I will send you a build of the Scary Cube game just to get you.
Yes, please do. And if you happen to have some kind of cracked version of Robotron that will play on my Vita, feel free to email that to me.
There's a way.
I know there is a way. Thanks, buddy.
All right, take care, guys.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Well, that guy was incredible, wasn't he?
Yep. If I ever go down, he can step right in for me.
I love talking with Mike. Can you tell there's a kinship there? There's a
you guys were nerding out pretty hard.
Yeah, he's a comrade, man. Like I've run into him several times over the years on EP production.
You guys are fucking game warriors together.
I just love the guy. He's just got a really great kind of perspective on all of this stuff, and he's done everything. He's done every job in games. He really gets.
He swings?
It. Pardon me?
You think he swings?
He might swing, but. That's something
I forgot
you'll have
to ask
him. Yeah, next time we talk to him.
Yeah, we'll have him on again. We need to start having regular guests on the show, like people who are recurring people.
Yeah.
Who we can say, hey, the 2DS is out. Let's call up Mike and see what he thinks.
I nominate Mike Mika.
Yeah, I would like to have Mike back.
He rocks.
He does rock, and so do you, my friend. I'm glad you had fun in Toronto. I don't mean to make fun of you. It did hurt my feelings a little bit. I got I'm an emotional guy.
You're a sensitive being.
I'm very sensitive.
I know.
And when I found out that I wasn't going to go and stay in the James Cameron suite and fly in his helicopter and Billy Campbell and up all night with strippers and everything,
I know, and
swinging with Billy.
It sucked. I heard from Jose. I heard from Ben. I heard from Miri.
That's our event. Every year that I've been in Vancouver since I moved here and since I joined the show full time, I've been able to go, and it's always been fun. And,
I know.
And I get such a jolt from it, too, because I see all the Toronto people, and they're so passionate. And last year there was a guy who dressed up as me in cosplay, and it was fun. And then this year I'm not even there.
I know, brother. Vancouver Fan Expo's coming, and we'll definitely.
I don't want to go to that one.
We'll definitely be back to the Toronto
I'm out of town
one
that week.
Well, you're definitely back to for the next one. That's it for this episode of Vic's Basement. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
I hope you had fun, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely.